Hey, entrepreneurs, are you trying to make bigger profits in your small business? Like many of us, I'm sure you're feeling it. Business is hard, and now more than ever, you need to have a plan to help your business not just survive, but thrive. And it can happen simply by thinking with the end in mind. I'm Marcia Reiner, a business growth strategist. I've helped tons of small business owners to establish and implement a tangible plan that guarantees increased profitability, guides your growth, and plans for your future exit. Because a business worth selling is also a business worth owning. And I'd love to share strategies that I've earned and learned with you on today's Profit with a Plan podcast. But before we get started, I have something to share with my listeners. I put together an insightful and think outside the box web class on Wednesday evening at 6 p.m. Pacific time. It has been specifically designed to help you learn how to turn your business into one worth selling, even if you aren't thinking of selling it yet. Why now? Join me and find out all the benefits that come with a sale-ready business. Register for free at exitwithaplan.com. So I'm really excited to have my guest on today, Kristy Russ. Kristy is a maverick pharmacist, functional medicine health coach with over 25 years experience in helping people both improve and preserve their health. She helps to discover and fix the underlying cause of your health issue rather than putting a Band-Aid solution on the standard medicine. Or of standard medicine, my apologies. She especially works with those who are struggling with exhaustion, chronic pain, and autoimmune disease, and the never-ending battle with weight loss. Kristy empowers you to take control of your health, and she does this by emphasizing realistic nutrition and lifestyle changes that everyone can make and tailor recommendations to your specific needs. The experience of her own difficult health journey, knowledge and abilities as a pharmacist, as well as her functional medicine training are valuable tools in accomplishing significant results. Wow, Kristy, super excited to have you on the show today. Welcome to Profit with a Plan.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Yeah, well, this is great because, you know, we're coming in towards the end of the year, and I've noticed there's this theme around the people that I'm talking to, and they're stressing. They're like, oh my gosh, I maybe didn't achieve the goals that I wanted to by this time right now, or oh my gosh, I've got so much more to do by the end of the year, and what's next you're going to do, and holidays, and just there's so much stress around people in business. And I know there's got to be a solution to it and something that we can do to make that go away.
Yeah, well, I mean, stress is kind of the millennial issue, whether for everybody, honestly. We are so used to the busy lifestyles that we've created for ourselves that we don't even realize our body is viewing it as stress. And everybody's dealing it. But I would say entrepreneurs and business owners, like way there, because now you're just taking what was already a busy life and throwing so much more at it, right? And I don't think anybody gets, how stressful it actually is until you're in that space, right? Everybody thinks, oh, hey, you're just sitting there, at home and, eating bonbons and because you're your own boss, so you can do whatever you want, right? So
Sure.
Yeah, like I lived that. I mean, I kind of started my journey into the functional medicine space before I started my own business and hung out my health coach shingle. But honestly, I after a year of building that business, and it's a business, and thankfully I recognized the signs of my own stress, because it's so easy to end up working the 16, 20 hour days, maybe not 20, but like it just, you're working away, and pretty soon you look at the clock and it's like 9:30, 10 o'clock, and it's like, holy cow. So yeah, like I really had to step back a little bit and just, I shouldn't step back. I'm in that space, so I recognize the symptoms pretty easily, and I just knew that okay, I need to do some more focus on self-care and not put myself last, because that's what every entrepreneur does, right? The whole focus is the business, and the taking care of yourself is the last priority, right?
So true. And it is funny because this is our baby, right? So
Mhm.
we're trying, we birthed it, we're trying to raise it, we're trying to get it to where it can stand on its own feet. And many of us are already there, but we continue in that. What kicked with me is self-induced stress, because we put all this crap on our back to lug up the hill, and we did it to ourselves. So that was the big aha I got with that, is like, duh, I did this to myself so I can turn it around too when I get to the point where I can recognize it.
Yeah.
What are some of the signs that we see or we should look for? Maybe if we're not able to see that, we're killing ourselves every day.
Yeah, well, stress definitely has, I mean, there's different kinds of stress. I mean, usually when we're talking about stress, we're talking about the mental stuff and all of that. But there's actually there's mental stress and there's physical stress, right?
Okay.
And so what happened, and the body can't tell the difference between either. So what happens is your body responds to stress by pumping out these hormones to prepare you to either, fight the danger or run from it, right? The fight or flight response. Because traditionally, the only stress we used to have was when our lives were actually in danger, right? Like some animals chasing you, like I'm going way back, right? And that works fabulous when the danger's over in a few minutes, but not so much with today's stressors that, it goes on and on. And like I said, there's the physical stress. There's like the crappy diet, not enough exercise or the wrong type of exercise. Gut issues is a really big one. I know people don't really think much of it, but honestly, I've kind of become the gut specialist because that is a huge physical stressor on your body. And that is usually the underlying reason why you're having kind of all of these health woes. Anyway, so same response, right? And so we weren't supposed to have, the body was only supposed to be in that fight or flight response for, 10% of your life, probably even less, right? I'm guesstimating. But now we are in that, I would say 70-80% of the day, 70%. And so, it accumulates, right? What ends up happening is your body, when the stress continues, it kind of goes into starts conserving a whole bunch of energy, ramping down your metabolism, storing fat, and that's where the exhaustion starts. And then it keeps going and it's pumping out more hormone to deal with the stress. And then that's where you get that sort of tired but wired situation where you're exhausted, but you're laying in bed and you can't sleep, right? And it's like you've had too much coffee or whatever, and you haven't had any, or it's been like forever, and it should be it should be worn off. And so getting restful sleep, just since I'm talking about sleep, is they affect each other. The stress and the sleep kind of go together, because if you have the stress, you don't sleep well. And if you're not sleeping well, then you're not repairing your body each night, and that causes stress. So then you get this big cycle. So when you fix one, the other one usually improves. But eventually what happens is your adrenal gland just can't keep up with the hormone production. And then that's when the real exhaustion sets in. And caffeine becomes almost a necessity just to get through the day. You basically hit that wall, total exhaustion sets in. And that can take years or even just months. It sort of depends on the person, depends on the situation. And I'm seeing tons of that. And that's basically where everything you've worked so hard for just kind of comes crumbling down, right?
Wow.
So
you've hit so many levels of things that I'm going, oh yeah, that's me. Oh, that's me. That's me. And, you may not have realized, or at least what just clicked with me, is that it's been years of me doing this. And no, I haven't like collapsed yet, But oh my gosh, that 3 o'clock coffee is absolutely necessary.
Right.
And I could be training my body to need the coffee and the caffeine, but it's also a trigger, I think, of the sign that I'm not doing well, and
Mm-hmm.
the internal gut problems and the things. I'm really healthy. So I think and tell myself, but I know that stress is eating me alive. And it is mostly the mental stress of, okay, I'm helping my clients and I'm helping myself and I'm trying to help the family and my kids and the whole thing that comes tumbling down. Again, self-actuated. I think that's the terminology for it, of me taking on everybody else's crap, and problems and trying to be there to solve that. Now add that the mothering to being a businesswoman, and I'm in trouble.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I think that's the key, and I need people to realize that, and to recognize that they need to do something, because usually what happens, like you said, like all of the people are dealing with health issues that are interfering with their lives, regardless of whether they realize it or not. Because what ends up happening is they come on so gradually that it kind of just becomes your new normal. And you
Mm.
don't realize until you hit that wall and you're done. I mean, it's not always stress stuff. Like, well, no, I shouldn't say it is. It is. Because like I said, it could be for a lot of people, it's the crappy way we've been eating all our lives. Even if you're eating your healthy diet, most of my clients come to me with their healthy diet because unfortunately we have been so misinformed our entire lives about how we're supposed to be healthy. So we
Mm.
got people eating all this food that they think is good for them that they really should be avoiding, and avoiding all this food that they think is bad for them that they really need to eat more of. And then we've got people, you know, either not exercising at all or exercising too much or doing the wrong thing. And that's a physical stressor. Eating the crappy diet, it's a physical stressor. It actually causes all kinds of reactions in your body that send you down to that stress thing. And then, like I said, you're adding all the all the workload and mental stress of stuff on top of everything. But you don't realize it because you're like, oh, that's normal.
I've rolled
Or
into it slowly over
yeah,
the time, and it becomes, I just accept that as, like you said, the new normal.
no. And
Wow.
then people also think that normal, like as you're getting old, they're like, oh yeah, but that's just aging. You know, the aches and pains and the gaining weight and the kind of having more pain, the being more tired.
Mm-hmm.
They're just like, oh well, that's just because I'm getting older, which I just want to clear that up. That's a total crock.
Good. So I
There's
can feel good as I get older. Look
yes,
what just happened today. Let me, go off on a tangent. 90-year-old William Shatner, let's talk about dating
right.
ourselves, just
Yeah.
went up in a rocket today.
I
This
know
is
that is so cool.
fantastic.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, that he could do that at age 90, but yet my mother, who's 85, is bedridden,
yes,
and needs help of all acting living because she didn't handle the stressors going through her life.
exactly,
Mm,
exactly.
good.
And I have to
Good. There's
say,
hope
I
for
was
us.
kind of in that too, that whole normal, like I considered myself one of the healthiest people I know because, I'm the pharmacist, I'm following all the rules, right? And yeah, and it came for me, it was like the exhaustion. I had major knee pain. Was waking up in the middle of the night for no
Mhm.
particular reason, the sleep issues. And then I started having like hormonal kinds of things. And yeah, and it wasn't till I kind of look back how I feel now that I realized kind of what a mess I really was. And so, yeah, like finding out all of these, and it was a shocker to discover that what I had been taught all my life about being healthy was mostly wrong. And so
I
ever since I've discovered that, I've been really trying to get that information out there because people are suffering and they really don't need to be. There's no reason for us to be, you should be perfectly healthy right up until you slide into the grave, really.
I love it. I love
Mhm.
it. And the fact that, we can have healthy lives and continue to go on. So let's talk a little bit about food. I know that I have had some adjustments over my life as I age, and then I start realizing that there are certain foods that um, and I'm not a pharmacist, and I'm certainly not a nutritionist. But, I start reading things up that, the intolerances we have to, say, gluten, or to wheat, and to dairy products, and things that, were like part of that. What did they used to call it? The food triangle, the pyramid that we had to eat off of, that just didn't work with me well, that they said caused inflammation and problems that trickled down to everything else. So talk to me about why we're just now experiencing these kind of things, or just recognizing them, and how we can get past it, diagnose it for ourselves, and get healthier.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's kind of two reasons for that. First of all, like when you're doing these, stressors and eating the wrong foods, basically the wrong foods, like it's cumulative, right? So you don't really, you can get away with doing all kinds of stuff when you're younger, and it does, like, it builds up because the body's not healing and repairing itself the way it's supposed to, right? So then that's why you tend to not notice the issues until you're hitting, middle age, that kind of stuff, right? So that's one of the reasons. But also, like, it's just we've kind of wrecked our food for the most part. Like, there's what people don't realize, first of all, I mean, there's tons of reasons, and I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but, first of all, there's no nutrients in the food compared to what it used to be. It's actually not physically possible to get all of the nutrients your body needs just from the foods that you eat now, right? Like 60, 80 years ago, for sure. But now, like, it's just, like I said, I won't go into why that is. It just is, right? And so that now we need to supplement if we want to be optimally healthy. Everything's GMO'd, the wheat nowadays, and that's why most people have gluten issues. In fact, more than 60% of the population, European descent, can't handle gluten and dairy. So the odds are very good that that's something that you shouldn't be eating. But anyways, yeah, like with the gluten, we know kind of wrecks everybody's gut, and the more you have it, the worse it is. And the grains nowadays don't resemble what our great grandparents were eating. Like, it's not even close, and our bodies physically can't adapt that quickly. Like with genetics and all that stuff, it doesn't change that quickly. So it's an onslaught onto our bodies, and so that's why we're having these food issues. Super inflammatory, which is the underlying cause of pretty much every issue. I think everybody knows it. With autoimmune, wrecks your gut, which leads to more food intolerances, and that's that's probably one of the biggest issues. Because once you're, if you're eating stuff that your body doesn't really know or isn't really liking, then it causes inflammation in your gut, which causes, like, the leaky gut. It is a thing. It is a thing. And then the more that's wrecked, then the more food intolerances you get, and it tends to be the foods that you eat most often. Which,
the bagel in the morning, the sandwich at lunch, and a bowl of pasta at dinner. It's three times being attacked by these grains that are coming in. That's right. Well, recognizing them and knowing that, we shouldn't be eating them. Most people, like, we all crave bread, or there's got to be that pizza night, or, I love a big bowl of spaghetti, whatever your thing is. That doesn't mean you have to say no forever. It just means that you have to limit it to an occasional item in your meal, right?
That's exactly it. When I'm working with people and we do kind of a food choice plan to figure out what their food sensitivities are and stuff, I'm like, it's pretty restrictive to begin with, and you really have to be in tune and start listening to your body. We've kind of forgotten how to do that. So getting in touch with the reactions of what happens after you eat and stuff. But I always tell people, it's like, this is just an experiment to find out what the issues are. And then once you find them, doesn't mean you're not ever having them again. It just means it's not a regular part of your of your diet. So, then, but you can still have it occasionally. And then the more your gut heals, then most things are able to come back. Most things, not everything, but most things are able to come back, and then you don't have those issues with it. And everybody,
not every day.
How much they react to things. So it's, some people are, and the thing is, you don't really know I shouldn't say, not always, but quite often you don't really know what foods are causing the issues until you kind of take them away for a little bit and then bring them back. It's just kind of the way the body works.
Sure.
And sometimes it's subtle, and, so it's a little bit tricky to figure out what it might be, but sometimes it's really easy. So
that's what science is, right? Science is testing and validating the theory that you have. So yeah, that's fantastic. So now that we've spoken a little bit, well, let's talk about a few more things. So we know that wheat and gluten is a big problem with folks. You mentioned dairy is a big problem. What other things are causing a lot of the problems that we're facing?
Well, I mean, I would say the biggest thing is like the processed foods and just the massively carb centric. And I hate saying carb because it sounds like you're getting on the whole keto bandwagon, which I'm not. But everybody seems to know what it is. So the biggest the worst thing that ever happened to our society was when they demonized fats, because then everybody pulled out all these fats, and then you tasted like crud. So then they replace them with the carbs, right? And so now we are just used to this whole carb burners. Like, most people are just carb burners, and that's why you feel like you need willpower to stop it, because you having like a big plate of spaghetti sends your blood sugar flying, which is horrible for the body, and it plummets too. So, and when it plummets, that's when you're exhausted, that's when the cravings come, and it's like you gotta eat, because it's actually going lower than your brain can function. And brain is somewhat important. So
that's a really good point. And you use the term carb burners, that our body is so used to using carbs as fuel that's where we get all this spiky craziness that you just talked about, rather than using the fats, the natural fats in your body and the energy sources in your body to be able to get through your day properly and be able to fight off all the stressors and navigate and not have to rely on the cup of coffee and the Kit Kat at 2:00 or 3:00 and things like that. So that's interesting.
And
so
it doesn't take long.
I was going to say, to get into that or to get out of it?
To get out of it.
Perfect.
But
so
both,
give us,
to be honest. Yeah, well, and I mean, it depends. Like there's even within a week, like I had a client who was a massive carb junkie, and he was it was pretty bad. But I said, if you just change the food choices, and it's not weird and it's not restrictive and you can still have carbs. We're not taking the carbs away. It's just the right choices, sort of what you're having them with and that kind of thing. Anyways,
this time of day. Yeah.
Yeah. And he was just kind of like, no way. And I think he only tried it because he was going to prove me wrong. And within a week, his cravings were totally gone. His energy was up. He'd lost a decent amount of weight even. I mean, he had a lot to lose. But and he said, it was so easy. He never felt like he was doing anything. So like 3 months later, he was a changed man. And it's got to be 8 years ago now. And he's still like, and he's down to a healthy weight. And he said he's got more energy than he had when he was in his teens even. So
that's fantastic. And we all need that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So beyond carbs, how could we do that? How could we get to a lifestyle? Like, what are the choices that we should be making? Just in generic. We're not making any health recommendations here. We're not, all the precursors, we should say, recommend, talk to your doctor, all that kind of stuff. But in what should we be eating? More vegetables? Should we, stay away from beef? Should we go after chicken? I mean, I feel like I eat so much chicken, I should have feathers popping out.
Yeah, well, it's really yeah, like it's just learning how the foods react in your body, like what happens to them when it happens, like how quickly is it converted to sugar, like where does the insulin go. So it's really like I in my program I have like a list. Like it's hard to say generically, but one thing I do tell people like is to follow the JERF principle, which is just eat real food, right? If you if you stay
Love it.
away from all the packaged stuff and you're just eating the food with its own ingredient, like broccoli, chicken, beef, that kind of stuff, for the most part, you'll be pretty good. And for the most part, that's a big change for people. Even
Yeah.
just going to regular food and not stopping for the fast food and the processed food and that kind of thing. So
Yeah, that just takes a little bit of pre-planning and shopping.
yeah.
And, I mean, like all of us, change is hard. Change is the hardest thing that anybody could do. But when we're thinking about why we're changing, our body is the temple that drives our life, that drives our business, that drives our families, that drives the enjoyment that we have in our life. This is the temple, and we absolutely have to take care of the temple. So maybe the suggestion is over this next week, you change 3 meals or 1 meal a day, until you can get used to that, where you're eating jerf food. Is that the word,
Yes,
jerf?
sure.
Jerf food, natural food in its normal state for that 1 meal. And then, week 2, you start changing out your snacks, or you start changing out your breakfast, or, I think anything is just little steps. You don't have to
Yeah.
go jump off the cliff and go all in right away, because that will
No,
probably
no.
fail.
I am the most realistic health coach that there's
I love
ever
it.
been, because and I guess to just to clarify, like change isn't hard, it's just different. We have our habits and the things, like if you think about how you're eating, even if you're eating like the healthy diet, and the food pyramid is not healthy, doesn't matter that they revamped it, it's horrible. So yeah, that's one misnomer right there. But if you think about what you eat, it's pretty similar. Like everybody has their easy go-to foods, and so then you go to the grocery store and you're just grabbing, all the same stuff, right? All it is like you got to eat anyway, and that's what I tell my entrepreneurs, right? It doesn't take any more time to eat properly. You just have to know what you should be eating. So it's just a matter of, most of my clients, like I said, I have the little food list. And, after a few shopping trips, you know what that is. And I've explained kind of how things are watching. So or like how things are working in your body. So even when you're going out to the restaurant or whatever, like, what to pick. And so it's not hard. It's just, it is different, and it requires that little bit of planning to make those changes initially. And then but then I say, like, but then you're feeling so good, and you've got lots of energy, and it's, like I always say, like when I'm doing these business things, like people are like, what does business, what does health have to do with business? Right? But it's like I always say, like you don't have success if you don't have your health. And
Mm.
and we all got into business to have really a better life, right?
Mm.
And I think, so I always tell people, like your best asset is your health. It's not your business, it's not your house, it's not money at all. Because unless you've been there, you kind of don't really realize. But everybody has health on the bottom priority until all of a sudden you get health problems. And if you talk to anybody with any health issues, it's the number one priority, because it affects your entire life. I mean, think about it. What if you hit that wall and you are exhausted all day, and you got all this work to do, like, and you can hardly keep your eyelids open? I mean, literally, it just crumbles apart. So yeah, it's got to be a priority, and then you can enjoy the whole thing. Like success is enjoying that life, even if you're working 12-hour days or whatever. Not that I recommend that, but if you've got lots of energy and you're still able to do all this other stuff and you still have a family life and you're, all of that, then hey, that is the dream, right? That's success.
Well, it's also it's kind of an insurance policy. Coming out of the financial services world, we would sell disability insurance because if you're the breadwinner for your family, or if you're the breadwinner for your employees, if you're running the company and you can no longer do that, then it affects your family and it affects your employees and it affects your customers that you're serving. And so this taking care of your body and exercising and eating right and reducing the stress that's in our life, that's taking care of your economy and your community of people around you. So I love this idea of really bringing this to a full circle, saying that, you're the fountain of life for your community, and you absolutely have to take care of yourself to keep that going. And I think it's so important. And that's why, Kristy, I had you on as a guest today to really bring that in, because I know people are going, what? Health? I don't need health. And yeah,
exactly.
You do. You do.
You do.
Otherwise,
it's
you can't
part
be
of your
William.
life, whether you realize it or not. So
you can't be, flying in a rocket when you're 90 years old if you don't take care of yourself, right?
Exactly.
I mean, that's the epitome of health and success at 90. Or one of the presidents was jumping out of a plane at his 95th birthday. It's not that woman that's in an assisted living home that says she had her scotch and her cigar every day that made her live to 110, but there are things that we want to do to have a fruitful life in our business and in our personal life. And this is so important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I love
for sure. Well, and you can't wait for it. Like I have my stepmom always likes to tell the story of her friend who she was a very successful realtor, but again she was like, and she had planned to do all this stuff and she was going to take care of herself and start doing exercising and getting and eating right and all this stuff, like later, like when she had more time, right? So more time is a myth, first of all, never happens.
24/7.
We should all know that as entrepreneurs, doesn't matter. But anyways, and then so she got a cancer diagnosis and she was dead within 6 months. Like it was, I mean, sad and all that, but it's like it happens and it doesn't have to. And so you can't just keep putting it off until there's more time. So, and like I said, it's not hard. And like I said, I'm pretty realistic about things. And I've worked with people enough to know how, and a lot of entrepreneurs do, to know how to integrate this stuff into a real life, so you don't have to be one of those people that you're giving everything up and you don't even nobody wants to go to a restaurant with you because you're gonna have all the weird stuff, right? Or
you just don't enjoy eating anymore because there's no flavor or enjoyment, and you feel like you've given up everything. I don't think either of us are saying that you've got to say no. It's just moderation, just as everything.
Yeah, I tell, like, Pareto's principle is that way for most things, right? Just like business, 80% of your income comes from 20% of your work. If you're doing what you should be doing 80% of the time, 20% of the time, you can do whatever the heck you want and it'll be fine. So it's not that you can't have that all or nothing attitude, and just even doing one thing, like you said, that's a perfect way to do it. And I have an online program that I've made it so that it's nice little tiny bite-sized chunks, like little 15 minutes at a time. And then it's like, and then if you're just doing that one thing, just do one thing a week, even one thing a month. At least you're making that progress, and you'll see results fairly quickly. So
yeah, and your jerk food doesn't need to be purchased at Whole Foods. It can still be at your regular grocery stores. So this is not going to be even more expensive, because that's a complaint. You hear, oh, well, fresh food, real food, it's more expensive, and I have to do it, and it's an inconvenience and all that. But I love the way that you put it all together in a simple and easily accessible to what we need to do in our busy lives, so we can keep having our lives to be busy and active and enjoyable. So fantastic.
Exactly.
Kristy, where can listeners find out more about you and your great little program where you teach us how to do one little thing?
Yeah, exactly. So my website is KristyRustHealthCoaching.com. And Kristy Russ is spelled Kristy.
Love it.
And yeah, so there's a right when you go there, there's like a free masterclass, and it goes into, like, I've kind of boiled it down to 5 things that people really need to get right. So you can go on there and kind of listen to that, and it goes into a lot more detail than what we talked about here today, and then it'll also give you access to the program.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much, Kristy. This is so important. And listeners, I implore you to take care of yourself so you can take care of your community and your family and everything that you've got going today. So thank you, Kristy. And listeners, I hope you found an idea or two that you can put into your business that will give you more energy so you can be more profitable in the future. And now more than ever, it's important to build your own business like you want to sell it, and it's going to require you to take care of yourself to do it. Don't forget to register for my new web class on how to turn your business into one worth selling, even if you aren't thinking about selling it. There's tons of benefits to having a sale-worthy business, like some free time and some enjoyable life and balance and so on, including eating well. And this will be on Wednesday at 6 p.m. Pacific time. So go register for free at www.exitwithaplan.com. And you don't want to miss this class. And Kristy and I would love to hear your ideas or questions or comments or things that maybe you've changed or that you plan to change in your diet so you can be more healthy and active and cut down on that stress. So please comment on today's show, and while you're at it, subscribe so that way you can hear about future shows. And you can always catch Profit with a Plan on any of your favorite podcast players. And we're looking forward to more great profitable information on next week's show. So until then, make your plans and profit with them. Thank so much, Kristy.
Thank you.